Thank you all for being here this evening. As Heidi said, my name is Sarah Thompson. I'm from the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. So yes, this is our fourth session. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us over the course of 4 weeks. And tonight we are going to take everything that we've learned from the first 3 sessions and actually take that information and put it into the supported decision-making agreement template. So we've got a little bit more information to cover tonight than we have the other 3 weeks. So the plan for this evening is to find out if there's any questions from last week's session. We'll do a very quick review of supported decision-making and supported decision-making agreements, since you all have been with us this whole time. We'll do a quick review of Sam, just in case you forgot who he was. And then we're going to look at his supported decision-making agreement template to kind of guide y'all as you go through possibility of filling out your own Virginia supported decision-making agreement. I've got some other forms I want to go over with you just to make you aware of what they are. We have a little bit of this, okay, now we've done this, now what do we do? And then we will open the floor for some questions. So I'm just going to do a quick check and see if there were any questions from our last session. Last week, where we looked at your relationship map and figuring out or looking at who might be a good supporter for you.
And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. Thank you.
So I'm not seeing any questions in chat or raised hands. So we will keep on moving through. If you do think of something, feel free to put it in chat and we will make sure that we talk about it as we go or at the very end, either one. So a very quick overview, since I'm sure this is repetitive for you all, but what is supported decision-making? Supported decision-making is the actual act of talking to people that you trust to get more information in order to make your own decisions. This is that informal piece where you're just having conversations with people that know you well, that you trust, that you feel have the information and the knowledge to help you think through all of your options when it comes to making a decision. Now, the formal side of this is your actual supported decision-making agreement. And this is that formal document where you're writing down what areas of life you want help in, who you want to help you, and how you want them to help you. The supported decision-making agreement is made up of the decision maker, the supporter or multiple supporters, and then you have that option of also a facilitator. So the decision maker, again, is you, the person making the supported decision-making agreement and the one making the final decision. So you have to be at least 18 years old. In Virginia right now, you have to have an intellectual or developmental disability, and you have to legally be able to make your own decision. So you don't have a legal guardian, for instance. Your supporters, you might have one supporter or you could have many supporters. It's up to you. They have to agree to help you and be a supporter on the agreement. But again, there's no rule about who can and can't be your supporter and how many supporters you can have. Then we've got this third option, the facilitator. And the facilitator's job is to make sure that everyone is doing what they say they're going to do with your supported decision-making agreement. So the supporters are helping you how they say they're going to help you. Again, this is optional. You don't have to have one if you don't want one. You could also create your supported decision-making agreement, and maybe later down the line, in a month or something, you might decide, you know what, I do want a facilitator, and you can add a facilitator at any time. So let's take a quick review of Sam again. So Sam is 18 years old and he has autism and uses words to communicate. He is in high school and has been learning job skills and about how to be a good employee while in school. Sam is considering graduating so that he can work and focus on his dream of being an actor. Sam lives with his mother, father, and older sister who visits when home from college. Sam wants to live on his own in the nearby city after he graduates because he feels the city is where stars are made. Sam's parents are nervous about him living on his own and making his own decisions because they worry he will be taken advantage of by others. Sam has never had to budget his money or pay bills and believes that everyone he meets is his friend. Sam and his family decided to use a supported decision-making agreement to help Sam talk through decisions and the areas of life he needs more support. Sam is able to make his own decisions and keep his rights and independence. Sam and his family understand the benefits of Sam's right to take risks and learn from them, also known as the dignity of risk. So over the previous 3 weeks, we looked at these 3 discovery tools. The what kind of support do I want tool. So that was week 2, actually, session 2. And that was kind of thinking about different ways that people get support. Do I want more time? Do I want somebody to help explain forms? Then our first session was when do I want support? And then our third session was the relationship map that we did last week. So again, what kinds of support do I want? This was that 3-page document, actually, where you could do check boxes that looked at what different types of support do people like. This is Sam's example. The 3rd page gives you the option actually to also write in if there's other ways that you specifically want to be supported or ways that you definitely don't want to be supported that people need to know. This tool was also a good tool to just give to anybody in your life that might help you. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's a teacher, just so people that are helping you in life understand how it is that you actually like to be helped, because we all like to get help in different ways. The other discovery tool was the When Do I Want Support tool. So this looked at what kinds of things can I do on my own? What kind of things do I need help with? And then what kind of things do I want somebody to do for me altogether, or I might need somebody to do for me because I can't do it yet, even with help. So this was a 10-page document that we went through that looked at all the different life areas, 8 life areas that match the supported decision-making agreement. And you would have put check marks with those different types of decisions or life choices to indicate whether it's something you could do on your own, you could do with support, or something, again, that you would need somebody else to do for you altogether. And then the third tool that we did last week was the relationship map. This one might be one of my favorite ones, actually. So the relationship map looks at who's in your life. So we've got family, friends, people that help you out at home or other places, and then people who help you out at school or work. It also looks at how close do you feel to these people? Not necessarily physically close, but emotional closeness. How much do you feel like you trust them and how important they are to you in your life? So this was Sam's relationship map. And if you remember from last week, when we looked at Sam's relationship map, and then Sam looked at what is it that he wants support with and needs support with, he then was able to figure out who in his life would be a good supporter. And so you're going to see those people come up on Sam's supported decision-making agreement as we go through it this evening. So if y'all, excuse me, are going through this with me, hopefully you've got your 3 tools, discovery tools with you as well, and you can look at them as we go through the agreement and kind of help remind you of maybe how you would fill out your supported decision-making agreement. So just a reminder, there are 8 life areas, and I have that little star there because there's kind of a 9th area. So the 8 main life areas that are on the supported decision-making agreement are health and personal care, friends and partners, money, where I live and community living, school and education, working, my rights and safety, and then meeting and talking with my supporters. Then we have this maybe 9th area, which is other, where you can add anything you want, because we know that we can't think of everything that somebody might have as far as what might come up for there to be in their life. So we've got this other option in here where you can really personalize this tool or this document even more. Oh, Ben, I just see your comment and thank you. Yes. Ask there to be a social and cultural. That's a great option. That is something I would like to talk to you more about. So let's discuss that later. So if you are looking at the first page of the Virginia Supported Decision-Making Agreement, this is Sam's first page, and I'm going to go through each section of it with you just so you're comfortable or have a better understanding with how to fill out each section. So the first thing is at the top, it's just going to give a little bit of information about this being what a supported decision-making agreement is. And then it says, I and blank. So you're going to put your name on that line. So this is Sam Smith's agreement, but if you're doing your own agreement, it would be your name there because you are the creator of the supported decision-making agreement, and this is all about you. This also makes you the decision maker. So after that section, it talks a little bit about your supporters and how your supporters help you understand your choices, but they don't make the decisions or choices for you. You make the final decision or choice for yourself. It also talks about how you can change your agreement at any time. You can add supporters, you could take away supporters, you could change the different things that you need help with or want help with, or you can even say, I don't want a supported decision-making agreement anymore. And you can kind of take away your agreement, and that's okay. So after that is the name of the decision maker. And remember, that is you. Then we ask for a way to contact you. So this way, all of your supporters know how to reach you because they need to be able to talk to you and get in contact with you in order to be able to help you. So this is the best way and your preferred way. So how do you like people to contact you? In Sam's case, it's his cell phone. You might also say, maybe it's my cell phone, but I prefer for you to text me instead of call me. That's always my preference too. So I get that. You might say instead, I want email. And so here's my email address. Or there might be certain times of day that you prefer for people to contact you. So put that there. This is, totally personal to you and what you want other people to know about how to contact you and when to contact you. Then you'll see the initial effective date of the agreement. So that is the first day that you create your agreement and you and at least one other supporter sign. So it would just be the first day that you and a supporter create and sign your agreement. You might have a time that other supporters sign on a different date, and that's okay. This is just going to be the very first date for your agreement. And then at the bottom of the page, we have an option for you to say if you have any other types of support. So people can have supported decision-making agreements and have other kinds of support, like power of attorney. You can have an advanced medical directive. You can have different kinds of help with your money, like representative payees. So we've listed options here. So you can say if you have any of these, and you can also indicate, did you attach a copy of it, of the form to your agreement or not? It's up to you. So the first one is a durable power of attorney. Even if yours isn't durable and you just have a regular power of attorney, it might be an educational power of attorney that's not durable. It might be a medical power of attorney that's not durable. It's totally up to you. That's okay. You can at least indicate that you have a power of attorney here. If you have an advanced medical directive, the financial fiduciary is just a big word for somebody that formally helps you with your money. So maybe a representative payee or somebody that handles your finances that's not a representative payee. Then we have a HIPAA release form, and that's one of the forms we'll talk about towards the end. So this is a form where you say it's okay for certain people to get medical information about you. And then the same thing with the educational release form. We have a form that we'll talk about at the end that, again, this is where you can say that you want certain people to either attend meetings or know information about your school. You're not giving away any of your rights to make decisions about your education. You're just saying, I want these people to be part of my planning process. They're not making the decision for me, though. And then because we know that we can't think of everything, we do have an other. So you might have something else that helps people understand how you like to get support, or another way that people support you. So if that's the case, you can put a check mark there and write in what it is, and then let people know, are you attaching a copy of it to this document or not? It's up to you. So Sam has a financial fiduciary, but he didn't attach a copy of those forms to his support decision-making agreement. But he did attach a copy of the HIPAA release form and his educational release form, and we'll see those later on. This is just a quick reminder about how you can use the When Do I Want Support Discovery tool to help you fill out the supported decision-making agreement template. So if you remember, we said that the When Do I Want Support tool goes through every life area in the same order as what is in the supported decision-making agreement template. It also has the choices or life decisions in the same order too. So for instance, for the very first one on the When Do I Want Support tool, it's under health and personal care. And it is getting my health care information. And Sam said, I can do this, but with support. So on his supported decision-making agreement under health and personal care, he selected Y, or yes, that he does want help with this. For the second one on When Do I Want Support, for choosing when to go to the doctor, he said, I can do this on my own. So then on his supported decision-making agreement, he answered in or no, because he does not need help with choosing when to go to the doctor. And we did the same thing, kind of going down his supported decision-making agreement and down the When Do I Want Support tool. So that will kind of hopefully help you if you're looking at your When Do I Want Support tool and the supported decision-making agreement together, reminds you how You can transfer the information or take the information from the discovery tool to then put on your supported decision-making agreement. So now I'm going to go through each of the life areas on the agreement and the different sections of each life area to make sure that you feel comfortable with how those get filled out. Every life area is filled out the same way. So we're not going to cover every single question or choice option in each life area. I'm just going to go through a few for each one to get you comfortable with it, but we will see what each page looks like. So the very first life area on the supported decision-making agreement, this is going to be page 2, is health and personal care. So the first thing that you'll want to do is either note, I do want help in this life area, or I do not want help in this life area. If it's a life area that isn't important to you or something that you can do all on your own already, you don't want any help or need any help with it, you can say, I do not. You can put a check next to do not right here. I do not want help with this life area. And then you don't have to fill out anything else. You move on to the next life area. In Sam's case, he does want help with some of the choices in his health and personal care. So he put a check next to I do. Now, if you want help with a life area, it's important for people to know who's going to help you. So who are the supporters with that life area? If you remember when we were talking about the relationship map last week, I said that your supporters can be different for different types of help, different questions, different life areas. So for Sam, we're going to see some of the same supporters throughout some of his different life areas. And then there are some that you're going to say, hey, I've only seen that person once. And that's because they have a very special skill or information that they can help Sam with that particular question or decision that he needs to make. So when it comes to your supporters, we're going to ask you for the supporter's name, the relationship to you. So in this case, we've got Sam's dad and mom, their address, email, and phone number. The main reason that we're asking for contact information is because it might be something where somebody needs to contact one of your supporters. If you've indicated or typed yes that you want one of your supporters to help you at meetings, then your case manager or your doctor, they need to know who your supporters are and how to contact them to invite them to those meetings. So for every choice or decision or task that is listed in each life area, you're either going to select Y or N. So Y for yes, I do want help with this, or N for no, I don't want help. The other thing we're going to ask is, if you do want help, who's going to help you? Is it all of your supporters listed up here in this area, or is it just some of your supporters? And we'll look at some more examples of this. The other thing that every life area will have is the option to add in more things that you want support with and things that you do not want your supporters to help you with. So in this case, Sam does want help with looking for new doctors when he needs them. And he's also told us that he wants all of his supporters, so his mom and his dad, because they're listed as his supporters in the health and personal care. He wants them to help him with looking for those new doctors when he needs it. He does tell us that there's nothing at this time that he doesn't want them to do specifically. So our next life area is friends and partners. So in this one, you can see where Sam specifically said only supporters listed here. The other thing we'll make a note about is, if you remember from health and personal care, his mom and his dad were his supporters. Now with friends and partners, he has his sister, his ABA therapist, and one of his friends, Adam. So he's given us their contact information as well on this. So for the first decision or task, help me understand and choose if I want to date and who I want to date. Sam answered in for no. He does not need help with that. This is something he can do on his own. For the second one, help me understand and make choices about birth control and pregnancy and access to medical care if needed. Sam answered why for yes, he does need help with this and wants help with this. And he's asking for Adam Young, his friend, and Rachel Jones, his ABA therapist, to support him with this. But this is not something that he wants support from his sister on. After that, we go to help me make choices about sex, where Sam says, no, I don't want support with that. And help me make choices about marriage, where Sam says, yes, I do want support. And he wants all of his supporters to help him. So that's going to be his sister, his ABA therapist, and Adam. After that, he has, no, I do not want help when it comes to helping me choose who to spend my time with. If we look at the next page, there is nothing that Sam says he specifically wants help with. That's in addition to what we've listed here. And there's nothing that he does not want his supporters to help him with. Now, Sam writes none when he doesn't have anything to put in these boxes. You could put none, you could put NA, you could draw an X through it, or you can leave it blank. It's totally up to you. It is your agreement. The third life area is money. Again, this is a life area that Sam does want some support with. And he's going to look for support from his dad, his mom, and his ABA therapist. For the first action, it's get and look at my financial information, including bank records. Sam answered why. Yes, I want help with this, and all of my supporters can help me with this. Same thing with the second one. Help me get information about my finances. He wants help with that, and for all of his supporters listed above, his mom, dad, and Rachel. For the third one, help me make big decisions about money. So things like opening a bank account and signing a lease. For this one, Sam only wants help from his mom and dad with that. Rachel is not going to help him when it comes to those kinds of choices about his money. Again, this is a life area that Sam doesn't have anything else that he wants to add as far as things that his supporters may do or things that his supporters may not do. Where I live and community living is another life area that Sam said, yes, I do want help with. For this life area, his mom, his dad, and Rachel, his ABA therapist, again, are the supporters. So for the very first one, as far as getting and look at information about places where I have lived, he doesn't need help with that. He knows where he's lived before, so that's fine. However, the second one, help me decide where to live. He does want some support with that, and he's okay with his mom, his dad, and Rachel helping him. Then help me decide who to live with, help me understand chores, and remind me to do chores, or even help me with the chores. He wants help from his mom, his dad, and Rachel for those two. Also, he would like help from them with understanding any leases that he's thinking about and helping understand any rules of his home and community. Depending on where you live, there are certain rules that you have to follow, and it's important to understand what they are. And so Sam wants some help making sure that he understands what those rules are. Also, he wants help with making safe choices around the house. So things like reminders to turn off the stove and practicing fire drills. And again, for that, he wants help from his mom, his dad, and Rachel. Now, if you notice when it comes to where I live and community living, Sam says that his supporters may also help him with issues with his roommates, but only Rachel, his ABA therapist. He does not want help with this from his mom and dad. And his supporters, things that they may not do is talk to his roommates without me. And that is all of his supporters. So his mom, his dad, and Rachel cannot talk to his roommates without him being there. So school and education is our fifth life area. This is another one that Sam does want help with. And for this life area, he's listed his mom and dad. Now, for the very first option, as far as get and look at my education information, including seeing my education records under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974, or FORPA, and then a release is signed and attached to this agreement. That's that educational release form that I talked about at the very beginning. So we'll look at that. Sam says, yes, he does want help with this, but only from his mom. So when we see Sam's educational release form, it's going to say only his mom, Mary Smith, on it. Now, there's other things that Sam does want help with, and he's okay with all of his supporters helping him. So his mom and his dad can help him with making decisions about whether to go to school and where to go, with making decisions about special education and accommodations, and attend education meetings with him, including his IEP meetings and school conferences. He does not want any help from his supporters when it comes to making decisions about school activities and events, or for people to help tell him what I want, tell others what I want and don't want regarding my education, or to help me tell people how I make decisions about my education. Sam feels pretty comfortable communicating to others about what he does and does not want when it comes to his education. But if you can see on this last one, he does want his supporters to make sure that people understand what he is saying. So he's going to be the one saying it at first, but if people don't understand, then his supporters can help him out. There's nothing listed for additional things that his supporters may do or things his supporters may not do when it comes to school and education. The sixth life area is working. So this is one that Sam does also want help with. If you see, Sam has listed his mom, his dad, and Johnny Prime, his theater coach, as a supporter. So this is the first time we've seen Johnny. It's actually going to be the only time we see Johnny as a supporter, because it relates to working, and Sam wants to get into acting as a job. So if his theater coach is a supporter, his theater coach probably has some information, some knowledge, and would be a good supporter for Sam if he's looking at getting a job in acting. So when it comes to the different kinds of support or choices, Sam says, nope, I don't want any help when it comes to choosing if I want to work. But he does want help understanding his work choices and applying for jobs, And he wants that help from all of his supporters. So his mom, his dad, and Johnny. He also wants help with understanding how working will affect his benefits. So if he gets Social Security or Medicaid, any other kind of government benefits that might be impacted by him working. And he wants help with understanding the benefits that he can have at his job. So depending on where you work, you might have vacation time, you might have time if you get sick where you can not work but still get paid. So he wants to know what those kinds of benefits are. Now, once he has an understanding of what those benefits are, Sam says, nope, I can request those benefits on my own. So if I need to take leave, because I'm sick, I can do that on my own once I know what it is. Let's see. Now, Sam also says that he can make decisions about transitional services, so supports to help with getting a job as he moves out of high school. But he does want help with exploring and making decisions about internships, apprenticeships, or mentoring. And this he wants help specifically from Johnny from, because again, Johnny has that experience. He has that knowledge about acting, which is important to Sam. Same thing where Sam says, I want help with making decisions about whether I need to take more classes or training to get a job I want and help taking these classes. Again, Johnny is the only supporter he wants for this because Johnny has that knowledge and experience when it comes to what Sam wants to do, which is being an actor. With working, Sam has nothing else listed for things that his supporters can also do and things that his supporters cannot do. Our seventh life area is my rights and safety. This is another one that Sam does want some support in. And he has listed his mom, his dad, and Rachel, his ABA therapist, again as his supporters. Go back. So to help me understand my rights as a voter and register to vote, Sam did not answer this one because he's still not certain if he wants to vote yet. And that's okay. If there is something that you don't feel comfortable with doing, you can leave it blank. You could cross it out. It's totally up to you because you can always update or change your supported decision-making agreement at any time. Now, Sam does answer yes for the rest of these, and he wants all of his supporters to help him with these things if at some point he does decide he wants to vote. So if he does decide he wants to vote, he would need some help understanding his choices when voting. He would need some help with casting his ballot when voting. He also needs help understanding and signing contracts and formal agreements. He needs some help understanding and getting help if he's being treated badly by others. And he also wants help communicating to others to make sure that people understand what he is communicating in regards to his rights to issues. Especially when it comes to things like if he's upset or there's a crisis or emergency services. So maybe the police department, the fire department, or EMS is involved. He wants some help communicating with them. And Sam says, when it comes to these things, I want everybody, all of my supporters to help me. So my mom, my dad, and Rachel. Sam also says that he specifically wants help from his mom, his dad, and Rachel when it comes to helping him understand benefits that he's eligible for. So with him turning 18, being 18, there might be some state or federal help that he can get, but he might have to apply for it. So understanding what his options are and then helping me apply for those benefits. Sam does want some help with that. And then he also wants help with accessing him, or excuse me, help me access help when I feel unsafe. So if something's going on where he doesn't feel very safe in that environment, helping him get assistance to help him feel safe again. Things he does not want his supporters to do is his supporters cannot sign contracts for him. Then we have our our eighth life area, which is meeting and talking with my supporters. So a lot of times this might be used if you do have a facilitator, because the facilitator's job is to make sure that your supporters are doing what they say they're going to do. So for Sam, Sam's listed his dad here as his supporter. He does want help with this, and he has said that he does want help with contacting his supporters to set up meetings, and he wants help with talking with his supporters when he's upset or has a problem with one of them. And those are all things he wants his dad to help him with. Sam, though, does not need help with keeping his supporters updated on how he's doing or updated on what he's doing. He does, though, want help from his dad with communicating with his supporters to make sure they understand what he is saying. There's no other things, though, that Sam says that he wants his supporters to do or not to do when it comes to meeting and talking with his supporters. And then we have this ninth life area, that's our star, which is other, where you can really personalize this. In Sam's case, there was nothing else that he wants to add to his agreement right now, so he checked the X. He said, nope, there's nothing that I want. So he put the X there and left the rest blank, and that's okay. He can do that. If later on there's something that he wants to add here, he can update his agreement and add it here. And I'll show you where you can also document any kinds of changes you make to your agreement. So that is all of the life areas in the Virginia Supported Decision-Making Agreement template. Now we're going to go through the rest of the pages in it. So you've got your agreements page. This page is where you, as the decision maker, sign and all of your supporters sign. So at the top, we talk about you being the supporter, or excuse me, you being the decision maker, and you deciding and making the final decisions on your own. And then your supporters, that they're agreeing to help you in the ways that have been indicated in the supported decision-making agreement. But they know, again, you make the final decision. So Sam has signed here. He also put the date that he first met and created his agreement, which was 5/1/22. And then each of his supporters has signed and dated. Now, Sam has more than 3 supporters. So all you see right now are Rachel, Johnny, and Adam. So Sam printed a second page of this so his other supporters could sign. So he actually has 2 agreements pages, and that's okay. You can make as many copies as you need to so that all of your supporters have a place to sign and date. Now, if you remember, I said you can make changes to your agreement, or you can decide not to have your supported decision-making agreement at any time. And if you decide, I don't want a supported decision-making agreement anymore, we call that the cancellation of the supported decision-making agreement. And that's this gray box at the bottom where you would write in your name, because it says, I blank am the creator of this agreement, which makes this all about me, and that makes me the decision maker. As the decision maker, I no longer want the supported decision-making agreement, And this agreement will no longer be effective as of the date indicated below. So you write your name in on the first line, you sign it, and you date it. And then from that date on, you no longer have a supported decision-making agreement. And that is up to you. It is okay. I would say, let your supporters know if you don't want to support a decision-making agreement anymore, so that they're not sitting there like, hey, I thought we had talked about this and I was going to help you with this. The next pages, if you do decide that you want to have a supported decision-making facilitator, they have their own page to sign. Now, if they're a supporter and a facilitator, they would sign twice. And that's because the facilitator is going to do some different things than just what the supporter is going to do. The facilitator is really going to be responsible for monitoring everybody. So again, the decision maker is going to sign and date this, and the facilitator needs to sign and date it. We also give you the option to have your supported decision-making agreement notarized. It is not required. The supported decision-making agreement in Virginia is not a legally binding document, which means that nobody can be sued for not doing anything or not doing what they say they're going to do. And getting it notarized doesn't make it any more legal or not legal. Just sometimes people feel better about documents that other people are signing being notarized. And so we wanted to make sure you had the option for this, but it is not required by any means. The last 2 pages of the agreement are spots where you can actually talk about if I'm going to make a change to my agreement. So changes are things like adding a new supporter, or maybe I am going to say that I want help with a certain thing that I didn't need help with before, or I learned that I can do this on my own and I don't need help with that area anymore. What you'll do is you will put the date. You're going to write in what the change is. You as the decision maker will sign. And then if you have any new supporters, they will sign here as well. And then we have cancellation. So sometimes it might not work out with a certain supporter. You might realize they aren't helping you how you wanted to be helped. Or a certain supporter might say, you know what, I just can't help you like I thought I could. So you all decide that this person's no longer going to be a supporter. So this is the page where you would date and list the name of the people that are no longer going to be your supporters. And then only you as the decision maker needs to sign. Those supporters, because they're no longer going to be your supporters, they don't have to sign. It's just you, the decision maker. So we give you space on each of these for 3 changes or 3 cancellations. And we usually say, you know, after 3, it's probably a good idea to rewrite your supported decision-making agreement so that it's really clear as to what you do want help with, what you don't want help with, and who's going to help you. Otherwise, if you have a lot of cross-throughs and changes, it might be hard for other people to understand, or for that matter, hard for your supporters to understand. So that is the Virginia Supported Decision-Making Agreement template. Now I just want to go through a quick review of some of the other documents or forms that we have as an option for you on the DBHDS website. So we have instructions on how to fill out the agreement. This is essentially the 4 sessions that we've had together with Pizzi, all written down. So it will quickly tell you how to do, how to fill out each of the 3 discovery tools, and then how to use the discovery tools to fill out the Virginia Supported Decision-Making Agreement. It's 6 pages. It is written in plain language, but again, it's the same information that we've covered over these 4 sessions. Then we have the release forms. So the first one that we've got is the HIPAA release form or medical release form. So this is a 2-page document. And sometimes if you go to doctor's appointments, they might already ask you to fill out a form that says who you are okay sharing information with. But sometimes those forms are a little confusing. They're hard to understand. They use words that aren't very clear, and you're not really sure how to fill them out. So this form has been adapted and written in plain language so that you can fill it out and say who it is that you want to see your medical information or not see. So you might have heard of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. And part of the ADA is that people have the right to have reasonable accommodations and have the right to have information given to them in a way that they understand. So this form is technically considered a reasonable accommodation. So you could fill this form out and give it to your doctor instead of the form that they give you. If they still say, no, you have to fill out our specific form, at least you have all of the information you need to help fill out that form, such as the person's name, their address, their email address, and phone number. But hopefully your doctor's office would be willing to accept this because you have that right. The other release form that we have is the educational release form. And this one says who you want to get information about your school, who you want people, who you would want to attend school meetings. But again, it does not give anybody else the right to make choices about your education. So you might hear something about an education or a transfer of rights. When you turn 18, the school might say something about here's a transfer of rights. Well, in transfer of rights, you're signing and saying that you are giving this person the right to make decisions for you about your education. And that's not what this form is. This form is where you keep your rights, you make your decisions about your education for yourself. But if you want a parent to come to an IEP meeting or know about an IEP meeting or get information about your school records, you can fill this form out and let the school know that. But you, again, still keep your rights. And then the last thing that we have on the DBHTS website is a frequently asked questions document. We actually have 2 of them. One's written in plain language, one's a little bit more complex, but they are the same questions on each document with the same information, just written with some different words used. And so this goes through basic things like what's supported decision-making, what's a supported decision-making agreement, what's the difference between supported decision-making and substitute decision-making. And then it also talks about the different people involved in a supported decision-making agreement and what they can and can't do, as well as our kind of safety protocol. So how to address concerns of abuse and exploitation when it comes to having a supported decision-making agreement. So how is a supported decision-making agreement created? It's created through having conversations. So you, as the decision maker, can talk to people that you trust. You can use the discovery tools if you want to, but you don't have to. and really think through, what is it that I want help with? Who would I feel comfortable getting help with? And how do I want that help? What does that help look like to me? You want to make sure that the people that you're asking to be your supporters, and if you're asking a facilitator as well, that they agree to be the supporters and facilitator with you. And remember that it can be created, updated, or canceled at any time. The important thing with supported decision-making agreements is that you, the decision maker, retain all of your rights and make all final decisions. I will also remind you that in Virginia, you do not have to use the Virginia Supported Decision-Making Agreement template. So the document that we went over tonight, it's not required to use that. We just created that as a way to kind of provide some guidance, because sometimes it's hard to think about all of the choices we might have to make. And, how would I write this down? So even if you don't use that template, maybe you would use parts of it. If you don't use this template, though, we want to make sure that you include at least these 4 things. And so if you're going to make your own agreement, we want to make sure that you include who you as the decision maker wants as your supporter, when you want help, how you want help. So what does that help look like? And then you and the supporters need to sign and date the form, just so we make sure everybody is agreeing to what's written on the agreement. So what are some possible next steps? So you might maybe review the discovery tools that you've been working on over the past 3-4 weeks and see, are there anything that you might want to change? Maybe there's things that I've realized, ways that I like to get help or not get help. Maybe there are things that I realized I can do on my own, or things that I realized I'd really rather have somebody else do for me. And then maybe there's more people that you want to add to your relationship map, or people that are on your relationship map that you're realizing would be a good supporter and you might want to talk to them. So again, those people that you circled or starred on your relationship map, you want to have a conversation with them or email them and ask them to be your supporters. If they agree, you would want to invite those supporters to a meeting to work on filling out your supported decision-making agreement. So that way they know what they're agreeing to as far as what life areas, what kinds of decisions they are going to help you with. You want to make sure that everyone signs the supported decision-making agreement. And then you want to give your copies of your agreement to people that it's important to have. So you want to keep a copy for sure. I would highly suggest you keep your original. But then your supporters, it's important for them to have copies so that they remember how they're agreeing to support you. If you have a support coordinator or a case manager, it would be good for them to have a copy of the agreement to make sure that they are inviting people that should be invited to meetings and that you're getting the support that you want when it comes to making decisions that your support coordinator might be talking to you about. Doctors, teachers, any kind of provider or a person that you work with, those are all important people that, it would be important for them to have copies of your supported decision-making agreement.